Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Deep Dive with Jamie Stein. Although today's going to be a little bit of a departure in the sense that it's going to be a little bit less of a deep dive and a little bit more of a fun chat. Obviously, I love doing the deep dives, but the challenge of the deep dives is they require a lot of time and energy and planning. And then sometimes I feel like I'm a little bit behind the times in terms of just being able to keep up to date with what's going on in the shows in real time. So I thought, you know what? Why not just hop on the mic, invite my old friend Molly Durand to the pod with her deck of cards. Welcome, Molly. How are you?
Hey, hi. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, and so Molly has no idea what we're going to get into. She's got her cards. I'm going to ask a question of the cards, and we're just going to have a little chat and see where it goes. Oh, did you not realize that?
No, I love that.
All right. Well, having said that, should we dive on in? Are you ready for me to ask a question of the cards? A Bravo TV question of the cards. Okay. So I've been catching up on all the shows, and what I am so curious about, Molly, is pulling a card or two, and then both of us, of course, checking into our own intuition, about Heather Dubrow's deeper feelings towards Tamra. Presently, Heather Dubrow's deeper feelings towards Tamra on the show, in their friendship at this point of time, and what's sort of going on for her on a deeper level there.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, yeah, I was just shuffling as you were asking the question and really like tapping into Heather, and I could see a chord from her to Tamra. There's an enormous amount of like emotional attachment, really. She has a strong emotional attachment to Tamra, and her relationship to Tamra too is guarded by knowing what's happened in the past and understanding that Tamra's can use a sword of truth coming from a place of trauma. So Tamra, she understands that Tamra, the way she feels about Tamra, is actually like there's an enormous amount of love there. So like I can tell you from what I'm looking at that Heather 110% loves Tamra, but she fears the Queen of Swords energy. She fears the energy of the Sword of Truth. It's almost like she fears the truth that Tamra could uncover, maybe. And there's also an energy. The moon is really giving me a lot of energy about like there's so much emotion here. I'm very surprised by the water, like the amount of water that's in these cards for Heather, especially because she doesn't present as a demonstratively emotional being, but like the level of emotion that she has towards Tamra is pretty intense here. She does not trust her, and she might even be choosing to walk away. But this is not an easy choice for her at all. But she fears the truth that Tamra could uncover, but she also fears that Tamra will speak her words and thoughts, like will be in her head, and her thoughts will come from a place of past trauma. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Tamra's past trauma, meaning that she'll use her words in a destructive way rather than a place of like highest good in terms of truth telling.
Yeah, and Heather doesn't trust that. And Heather's emotions are an undercurrent that we're not actually seeing. We don't see her emotional world the way she experiences it.
It's so interesting what you're saying, because this totally reflects what I've been picking up on and the inner conflict that I've been picking up on. Part of me almost, well, maybe it's better that I didn't say, I don't know if it's better for me to say what I'm picking up on before you go into the cards, but
yeah,
this is the reason why I asked the question. So now I'll go back and sort of let you know, because I was watching I think it was the last episode. I don't think it's aired yet this week. We're recording this Tuesday, July 22nd. Wednesday, July 22nd. So I think it's on tonight. So we've gotten 2 episodes so far. Tonight's episode hasn't aired yet, but in the first 2 episodes of OC, there's been a little bit of brouhaha around Heather and her orientation towards Tamra. And in particular, Jen Pedranti, in a very weird way, has gotten very invested in the degree to which Heather is being emotionally transparent with Tamra. And, more than her, the whole cast has been clocking that Heather had a lot to say about Tamra behind her back at the reunion last year, but then she's not bringing it to her face. And again, there's a weird way that the cast seems very invested in the way that Heather orients towards Tamra. But I say all this because there was this dinner that Tamra and Heather had, or a lunch in the last episode, where basically Tamra's confronting her about this and saying, look, I'm hearing murmurings that you're saying things about me. Jen mentioned that you were saying things about me. And it was just so interesting for me to take Heather in at that lunch, because there's a held breath with Heather towards Tamra. Like, there's a way that she's able to language things to, on the surface, take ownership of it and say, look, I'm honest with you that a lot of your behavior I don't agree with. I'll admit to you, I've talked about it with other people, but it's nothing that I don't say to your face. Or, and then Tamra brings in that Heather has mentioned that she puts Tamra in a box. And Heather's like, that's right. I did say that, but I put everyone in a box. And it's
I love that, actually.
She owns it. But to me, it still feels like she's skirting around something. Like she's technically owning it to cover her bases, but there's a truth in Heather that's not being named. I don't quite know what it is, because again, I do hear her say things. I mean, she has said, I don't fully trust you. She has said, you sometimes scare me. But even in saying that, and maybe this is what you're speaking to about the disconnect between her, the way she expresses her outer truth and the deeper inner truth of how she experiences it on an emotional level. To me, when I hear her talk, it still feels like there's a way she's skating around the truth. All this is to
definitely, yeah. She's a strategic person.
Wait.
Yeah.
So all of this just to say, though, like when I was watching, because I see a lot of people online saying things like, Heather doesn't give a fuck about Tamra. Like, it's all strategy. It's all this. It's all that. And I've actually never felt that way. And when I was watching their lunch, I was kind of feeling the part of me that wanted to say, like, no, I actually think there's a place where Heather genuinely cares about Tamra. I think there's a real friendship there. Yes, they may have grown this friendship through the show, but they've been on the show a long time together. And I think there's a place where Heather genuinely cares about Tamra. But it was interesting when I started to kind of articulate that in my mind out loud, because sometimes I like to just develop my thoughts for myself, knowing I might record stuff. I did notice something hiccuped in me. And I was like, wait a second. This isn't the full truth, though. It's like, I do believe there's a place where she really cares about Tamra. And I'm also feeling the place where, like you just said, there is strategy here. And there is some sort of game that, like, there's a way that she is, I do believe, positioning herself within the show, and the way she orients with her friendship with Tamra, that's about positioning within the show, which to me kind of even gets into, like, what is she doing on the show right now in the first place? Why did she come back to the show? But I suddenly felt two truths existing at once, where it's almost like if I were to say how I experience it, and then I'd love to check back in with you and possibly the cards. It's almost like there's these different levels of consciousness within Heather. And it's almost like the way that I would articulate it is she's almost on the most surface level. There's a way she's keeping Tamra at an arm's length. There's a way that she is strategizing for the sake of the show. But then underneath that, in a way that she perhaps doesn't even want to let herself know fully, she really cares about Tamra. And that's why I'm so interested in the cards just revealed, because it's almost this feeling of like, I don't want to know how much I care, because I don't want to give her that power, but I do actually care. But I'm going to keep it pushed down. And then on top of that, there's strategy, but then I don't want to admit that there's strategy. So on top of that, I'm pretending there isn't any strategy. And these are the different, like the three different layers of consciousness I feel in Heather.
100%. And as you were talking, I just really, I wanted to just, as I was shuffling, like ask what you were asking is like, what is her deeper, like real feelings towards Tamara? And the Ace of Cups flew out, which is like basically like divine love. Like, it's also like a seed of a beginning of something that can like flourish. I feel like she feels very deeply for her. You know, she has a lot of Saturn energy, right? So it's like she sees everything macro. So she sees society, how it works, boxcar, like she's like, I can accept this about this person and this about this person. Once I figure them out, like for her, she does put people in a box. Sometimes when you're friends with like somebody who's got a lot of Saturn energy, you can feel like you can't grow past a certain, like there's like a ceiling on you that you can't grow past because they've already decided who you are. And I do get a little bit of that. You know, I was looking back at the cards where you were first talking, and I'm like, it's possible that they could be harboring secrets together, like a pact. I do see that a little bit, or that maybe Tamara has held secrets for Heather, or vice versa. And you know, there's a fear, and I almost, you know, I was curious too, just about like Tamara's energy towards Heather, and the investment level, and the cards are sort of showing me more of like a arrested development stage, like the reciprocity between them. Like Heather might actually have like an enormous amount of attachment and love, and this is how Heather is a loyal friend. Like this is actually her being the highest of loyal friends that she knows how to be. And for Tamara, I'm sort of seeing Tamara gives the energy like 30%, if you will. Like it's not like like what she would give Teddy. So it's interesting because I do think Heather is actually more invested, if I'm honest, from what I'm looking at. Not that Tamara is not invested, but Tamara seeks conflict. I'm just looking at the cards. I know you love her, but there's always like conflict, and there's conflict and competition. So Tamara does view things as competition, almost from a high school standpoint. That's just where she is looping personally. Whereas Heather has deep fears around Tamara, deep fears. Like we're talking like psychic fears, probably attachments to the mother. I think it has a lot to do with her mother,
That's what I was about to say, yeah.
One quick thing, when you mentioned Jen, I just had to shuffle and see what flew out. And yeah, she and her boyfriend are strategically trying to, over time, they're not going to let go of what happened to them from Tamara, and they are actively seeking to tear her down over time, slowly, with the temperance. You know, the pebble, like a stone becomes soft over time.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I don't want to get too much into Jen, but Jen will never wield her power directly. So she needs to do it through other people. That's what I said on a reel on Instagram. It just feels like she's trying to recruit Heather to fight her battle. But yeah, even just when you first were reporting the cards and you were talking about the push-pull of love and fear in Heather towards Tamara, I was just like, oh, this is like mom, 100%. I mean, she's recruiting her mother to be kind of like a big part of her storyline this season, and we see it. It's like there's obviously a deep love that Heather has for her mother and a desire to be seen and heard. And you could also feel she's bracing for the for the poke. She's bracing for the jab. She's bracing to be unseen, unheard, to be hurt by her. So it's interesting to then look at Tamra through that same lens of push-pull between fear and love. I want to go towards you. I'm scared you're going to hurt me. Just even speaking in terms of pattern. But what also came to me too is like when you spoke about Tamra more recently, I also could feel the place where she also, Heather, in this place where she does actually have this deep love for Tamara, also perhaps at the same time sees her as a child too, in the sense of like, you know, Tamara, because there is a kind of arrested development in Tamara that I think she's now actually trying to tend to with her therapy. And I do see her making new choices this season, which is sort of really interesting. But, you know, Tamara in her way is trying to work on herself. And, you know, Tamara it can be very challenging for Tamara to see beyond her own blind spots. And I wonder if there's also something for Heather here in the place where you're saying like the Saturn individual has facility with the macro and the bigger picture, maybe there's also a part of Heather that's seeing Tamra almost as like a daughter of like, I see you in your limitation. This is the box, right? I mean, the box is sort of a more unforgiving way of putting it, but like, I see you in your limitations. I see you in your struggles. I know what you're capable of. I know what you're not capable of. And I love you anyway. And I love you for it. And so I think that's interesting, Heather seeing her as both a mother and a daughter at the same time. And where this really takes me and what I'd love to run by you, it's almost like what I'm suddenly feeling for Heather. And again, this goes back to what you named immediately, which is kind of like the difference in the way that she presents what's going on for her versus what it might feel like on her in her interior life. But if we're right, or if we're onto something about maybe Heather in her essence, in this Saturn essence, mind you, I have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to these astral. I'm going off of you. So correct me if I ever get it wrong. In her Saturn essence, that there's actually a capacity. This is so interesting because Heather is known for her oftentimes judgmental edge, you know, in her condescension. But what I'm picking up on is a possibility in her Saturn essence where she actually is capable of a very deep unconditional love for people, that's non-judgmental, where she sees them for who they are, she accepts them for who they are. Like you're saying, she is willing to have them in their proper box. Again, that language is a little weird to me, but I'll go with it, to have them in their proper box and deal with them on that level. But it's almost like she pulls back from fully embodying that from a place of the true unconditional love because she fears she's not going to get it back in return. And she's going to be extending all this unconditional love, like to her mother, for example. And what she's going to get back in return is judgment, is jabs, is like a destructive truth telling. And then she's going to be the one who's hurt on the other side. And even as I say that, I start to feel this like deep, like grief in my heart of kind of like, I'm willing to extend you something that you're not willing to give back to me. And that scares me. And so I want to kind of offer you something, but I'm going to offer you it in a way where it's guarded and I'm managing it. And this does bring me back to the original question of like, I'm feeling this very strongly in her relationship with Tamra, almost like a voice that's like, look, Tamra, like I see your wildness. I see your scrappiness. I see all of you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm willing to hang out there with you, but I don't trust you're going to give that back to me in return. And I don't trust that it's safe for me to fully extend that to you. And so I'm kind of doing a little tap dance here with you.
Yeah, 100%. I was curious just now and shuffled because you kind of almost like you were asking a question underneath it, and it was very cool. And I sort of asked, how does Heather feel about what she receives from Tamra? And what I'm looking at right now is really interesting. She actually receives an initiation in how to do more work. And I'm seeing 2 crescent moons here, which is just the beginning of something, like letting go of something, starting fresh, like actually setting intentions. And something about what she gets from Tamra almost initiates in a very inspired, creative way. It sparks her creativity. It forces her to go deeper in her craft, whatever you want to call that. She does act, I believe, but it's forcing her to do more creative work. And that is really interesting to me. Go ahead.
Yeah. Do you mean, does that land with you as like within the context of the show, her personal development work?
I think it's deeper than that. These cards always go deeper. I'm also looking at a tree that's growing. They're the roots of a tree growing into something else, and a ladder of creative wands going to the moon is a new beginning, and an initiation card is the Ace of Wands. So it's like what she gets from Tamra isn't obvious to us, but what Tamra is offering her for whatever trigger she gets from Tamra, because by the way, she absolutely loves Tamra to death. She just shows it differently than what we're used to seeing, right? She's not like fluffy. She's like very like, okay, I'm gonna, like almost like not sterile, but like a procedural, like a doctor's office, like I'm going to love you through action, through this, through that. And I think, yes, she talks shit, absolutely, to process her own stuff. But something about Tamra literally ignites actual Kundalini, and I know this sounds weird, I'm just telling you what I'm seeing. Something about engaging with Tamra, talking to Tamra, forces Heather to do deeper work. It forces her to have to keep pushing creatively. It pushes something out of her that then allows her from like the roots of her own DNA, so probably family and moms and all of that stuff, it forces her to go forward. And actually, we've seen that in the show where she's like, Tamra, where her voice comes out and she's like trying to get through. And I always love it when I see that in Heather, because she has wisdom. I think what you were speaking to before and why I'm looking at, the cards that sort of came out with Tamra is like, if somebody puts you into a category and puts a ceiling on your personality, you're going to naturally rebel. And I believe that because in order for Heather to function in the world, and because she has these big emotions that she can't show, she has to manage them internally. So she has to have a Saturnian structure of how things go. Saturn just means like society, how the world's structure, like a governmental branch or what, So her mind can almost be like, those bubbles, like almost going in like a business. If you were to set up a business and here, that's where this person goes and they're good for this, so I'll put them over there. Like she'd be a good CEO or a leader. But in the way that she's doing it on the show, the deep love that she has for Tamra is probably deeper than Tamra would ever know or that other people would ever know. And Tamra sees her as a tool from what I'm seeing. I mean, Tamra is like, thinks it's fun and likes her, but she's always worried about competition with Heather for some reason. But for Heather, the engagement that she has with Tamra awakens her to force her forward to find her own power that ultimately allows her to grow, which is very fascinating. That's what the cards say. I don't know if it's true, but that's what I'm seeing.
Well, it's interesting too because, I did a deep dive on Heather a few years back, because I've always been so fascinated by how close she got to really successful acting career, which I will say this, where I am always on Heather's side is when they try to take the piss out of her acting career or anyone tries to denigrate that, because for anyone, who's maybe not as familiar with the entertainment industry, Heather had a series regular lead, I think in 3 different primetime network shows, maybe two or three. Back when like there were only 3 networks, NBC, CBS, and ABC, like none of this cable stuff. Like for her to book a series regular role and not one, but 2, 3, maybe 3 primetime major network shows, that like almost no one ever reaches that point. And if any one of those shows had hit, she would have been famous. Like she would have been famous. Like she would have been a famous actress who everyone heard of. So her acting career was no joke, and she walked away from it. And I always have been so fascinated by. I'm just so curious about what that was like for her to be so close and to then choose to walk away and then to choose reality TV. Like, I think there's a world of information in there.
Yeah, she's doing Groundlings now, and Gina was sort of making fun of her for it.
No, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, so I've always just been curious about her relationship to her acting and her creativity, because again, to your point, you called her a CEO, but like when I see her so obsessive about the house and the details of this, I'm always like, that's her creative energy. She's got a lot of creative energy. But anyways, my point being, when I did a deep dive on her, what I felt was this capacity for spontaneous aliveness and wildness that she was scared of. Like if I kind of felt into what unconscious part of Heather might have been scared to be a truly successful actress, it's almost like that wild witch in her was so scared to like surrender control. So when I hear you say like Tamra challenges her to grow, well, what, Tamra has her blind spots and her limitations. What does Tamra have? She has a willingness to get fucking wild. And even as I'm saying this, I'm getting chills. That's my deck of cards. It's always when I know I'm onto something. It's like, I think there's something for Heather about the wildness that Tamra models, and it allows Heather to be in energetic relationship, like to taste something without maybe necessarily fully, embodying it for herself. So I want to say that. And the other thing I also want to say, just coming back to Tamra's perspective, I was really struck when you said she'll give her 30%, but not everything like Teddy, because it's true. She gives everything to Teddy, right? And what I really felt too, and this is what's so interesting, this is where I think Tamra and Heather might be mirrors for each other. I was like, because I think, Heather said, I don't trust you, Tamra. I think Tamra doesn't trust Heather. And I think she's scared of Heather. And I think I'm actually feeling it. I think in the same way that Heather is scared to put her heart on the line with Tamra, I think Tamra is scared to put her heart on the line with Heather. I think there's something here for me about not feeling good enough, feeling inferior, and feeling that somehow, yes, she is going to get judged for her wildness. She's going to be rejected. She's going to be trampled. Like, and maybe part of it is that she feels Heather's strategy, which is ironic because, as you are saying, Tamra has her own relationship to strategy for sure. But Tamra also has her own relationship to loyalty, which is an interesting edge to explore. And so I just feel this part of Tamra. It's like, and I think that's why she's checking things out. It's like, do you really love me? Do you really accept me? Are you really going to be there for me? Because there's something here with the fancy pants. Kind of like Heather is drawn to Tamra's wildness. I think there's something that Tamra is drawn to in Heather and what she embodies, but there's also something that she doesn't trust there too, of like, am I just going to be the kind of like, whatever, like low priority friend that you sort of toss to the side when I no longer fit your world? I don't know. It's something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that both of them represent qualities that the other doesn't have. So like when I'm seeing Heather's emotional world here, and I told you I was surprised by it, I'm seeing somebody who cannot present the emotions that are deep within her, whereas I see Tamra as somebody who presents emotions first. We're seeing her cry, she can cry very easily, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's just Tamra is extemporaneous and overt with her emotional world, and Heather is the direct opposite. And I think it's funny, like you said, they were mirrors. I think that's so true. There's so much opportunity here. But I do see that Tamra views Heather in a competitive way. That's just what I'm seeing. And again, I'm seeing that that Tamra vacillates back and forth, but they do seem to have a link together that was formed a long time ago. But in Tamra's eyes, there is some coldness. There is not as much emotional availability that I'm seeing that Tamra could extend to Heather. And it could be because everybody presents differently and everybody has different love languages. And the way that Heather is presenting, I loved it when she was like, yeah, I said that. I said a box because this is how I view the world. And she's saying that like this because she is, sometimes people assume that everybody views the world the same way we do. And in that moment, it was sort of like you could see almost like her explaining the mechanism of her brain. She's like, yes, I do this for this person, and this person goes there, and this person goes there. And like I said, I think people will naturally rebel against that. But that is how Heather knows how to love and stay loyal. Because if she were, it's similar, like she's, I think, Capricorn. So she can see how everything works. Similar to like how a Scorpio can see shadow and not be like, we can see somebody's shadow, but not, sometimes we even overlook it because it doesn't scare us at all. Whereas a Capricorn can see everything, but then decides if they're going to pursue, how they're going to navigate, if it's worth it to them. They're very good at energetic boundaries. And so why people think Heather comes across a certain way of not being this, that, and the other, she is actually authentically herself, 110%. This is how she operates in the world. This is how she loves. This is very deep for her. You see it when she talks about her kids, but even when she's talking to Tamra, I see a great deal of her trying to get through to Tamra to say, like, sometimes when you behave this way, it's not okay. And I think she has every right to say that. And Tamra, I have not seen Tamra take Heather in a way that makes me feel satisfied if I were Heather. Personally, that said, if I was Tamra, I would absolutely not trust Heather either, 110%.
Well, it's kind of like they're both, this is what we do, right? We're all in our own self-fulfilling prophecies. It's right. Like the way that they're both maneuvering is the very thing that makes the other scared. And then in their fear, they don't. So when they're each scared, they're employing their survival strategies, which then makes the other more scared. So it's like, yeah, I mean, if there is a part like Tamra will freak out, right? And wield her quote unquote truth telling and her emotions in destructive ways sometimes.
Victimization.
And so that makes Heather scared. So Heather might guard her heart and be reserved. But then Tamra picks up on Heather being reserved and guarding her heart. So then she doesn't trust Heather. And so
Exactly.
then it's like they keep sort of pinging each other.
Ping pong back and forth. And that's interesting image.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to say what it is?
It's an image. It's a butterfly, which obviously prompts transformation and chrysalis. But there's two coins back and forth, and they're Virgo, Capricorn, two earth signs. They both are. And they are linked together universally. They could be linked, you could look at it as esoteric, like I'm linked to the eternal, or we're linked eternally. But, the infinity sign, which you might even have, I'm sure many audience members could probably give a better quote on what the infinity sign is, but it's eternally like energetic movement back and forth and back and forth. But when I see it paired in this particular card with the butterfly, it's like something about their exchange in energy is allowing growth for both of them. I don't think Tamra's as aware of it or as open to it, but Heather's deeply triggered by Tamra, and every time she's interacted with Tamra, she's growing more and more and more into who she's meant to be. And I'm actually not kidding about that. I feel very strongly about that.
Well, then, yeah, maybe just to round this all out, I mean, it does make me so curious about Heather's orientation to the show this time around, because, it's so interesting. Like, we're talking about authenticity, and you even mentioned like Heather showing up like as who she actually is, and I totally understand what you mean. But like then I go back to last season, right? And I want to say Heather's been so interesting to me since she's come back. Like, it's interesting to me, first of all, that she's come back. You know what I mean? And she's come back. She's a little bit older, obviously, because time goes by. And my experience of her since she's been back has been interesting. Again, it's been multifaceted, where there's a way in which she actually feels softer. She actually feels humbler. Like, I kind of feel someone who, first of all, going back to what I was saying before, at one point walked away from an incredibly, nearly successful acting career, chose a different life for herself as like a literal Real Housewife in Orange County, but then became a reality star. Then had this great tenure on the show. And I think more or less, I think she was offered like a demotion and she walked away from the demotion. So in a way, I don't know if saying she was fired is the exact right language, but it wasn't exactly of her choosing. Like, I think there was a definite ego bruise there, especially because Kelly Dodd, who was like her nemesis at the time, got to stay. Kelly Dodd outlasted Heather. I think there was a real ego bruise there, right?
Yeah.
And then time goes by and then she comes back. And it's sort of like, I kind of felt the humility both of like, as we age, that softens us. Well, it can harden us too, or it can soften us. We start to really look at our lives, what it's been, where it's going. Mortality is staring us, much more in the face. And I also think, there's a way that she was really wielding that with her motherhood, like seeing her be that's where you can feel her love, right? She's so protective of her kids. She's so loving towards her kids. I think that's also part of the season she's in, of becoming an empty nester. Not quite, but she's like on the road. And so there was this sort of, I don't know. I saw a softness and a humility in her that I did not feel before. Now, having said that, I'm saying all this to say, but then last year, we get that moment where she's at I forget what it was, but like a doctor's appointment with Terry, and Terry says something on camera, and there's a hot mic moment where Heather is just like, why are you saying this stuff on camera? Like, she chastises him for like what he was saying on camera. And it's like, oh, there it is. There's the old control.
Yes.
And so it's like, it's just made me curious about her orientation towards the show now, what she's doing there, why she's there. Because again, the reason I'm bringing this in, I feel like this has something to do with the way she's orienting towards Tamra too, because they are on a show together. So this isn't just about trust in the friendship in general principle. It's about trust in the friendship, and also how is that going to play out on the show? And what price might there be paid on the show? And so I don't know. I just wanted to bring in this notion of like, what is the show for Heather at this point? Like, what does she want to get out of this? What does it mean to her? Why is she here?
Yeah, the something came through that flew out that I think kind of speaks to what you're saying, but it hit me just now, so I'm like digesting it. There's a very strong truth and clarity that she's found, and I believe that everybody's point of view and everybody holds their own truth and can believe it fully. It doesn't mean it's the universal truth. It doesn't mean that, that it's necessarily you agree with their truth. But from what I'm seeing, Heather believes that she sees things as they are. And Heather believes that she has a clarity about the group and the show. And Heather believes that she is spearheading truth. And Tamra does not believe that she's being honest. That's a really interesting dynamic. And when Heather does speak the truth in the group about Tamra, when Tamra's not there, she is speaking truth in that moment to what was happening in context to what they all thought was going on at that time. And now she's having to deal with, oh, well, you said this and you said that, and people are questioning her truth. But the thing is that Heather's, and I'm not defending her, I'm just reading the cards. My opinion of Heather is very different from what I'm seeing, to be honest with you. What I'm seeing is somebody who really, truly, this is her truth. Like, she's like, I will tell you when you're acting this way. It doesn't mean that I don't love you and I'm not loyal. Like, I'm even starting to talk like her. Like, she's like, I will tell you right now, Tamra. The problem is that Tamra literally even said, I feel scolded by you. And so if I could give any advice, like from what I'm seeing, not advice, but like the offering or the invitation for Heather would be to take people out of the box. It would be to meet Tamra where Tamra's at. It would be to not see the higher perspective. And that goes back to the wild creative energy. Like, what if Heather didn't have to see the bigger picture? What if she didn't have to be pragmatic? And could she allow and receive Tamra from that childlike place, maybe? Right? Like you were talking about earlier.
Well, and I think this goes back to what was named before, which is like, can she wield that macros perspective with the deep devotional love behind it? Like, that's what I think is often missing. And so when Tamra says, I feel scolded, it's because it's sort of like the Hanson song, Where's the Love? Now, I'm going to bring in another piece.
I think that's how Heather loves, though. That's my point. My point is that she loves with a sword. Yes. And that is how she...
I get what you're saying. And I actually relate to that because I feel like I have like a current of tough love. But I still think even loving with a sword, it can be backed by a feeling of love. I guess what I'm saying is, for me, from my intuitive perspective, what I'm picking up on is there's a way that she keeps the love aspect of it that feels in a box inside of her. Like, I'm not saying it's not there. Like, again, look at the way she loves her kids. There's a palpable love that you feel there. I don't know that I feel that in the same way. I mean, obviously they're not her kids, but I don't know that I feel that in the same way with her friends or on the show. But like, what I'm getting off of this kind of what we could call it a reading is that that's actually what wants to flow through her. And she's scared to express it, to embody it, to wield it all the way because of what I said before of like, I'm going to offer this part of myself. I'm going to get fucking hurt in return. And this is the other part I want to bring into it to like wrap this all up. It's almost like not just the willingness to bring that love to someone like Tamra or her mother or whoever, like the unguarded force of love along with the sword. But then when someone jabs her or pokes her, that her true, genuine emotional response is not put in a box either, that she doesn't retreat in quiet hurt or even shame, but instead is like, ouch, that fucking hurt. These are my tears. You know, you talked about
you're
Tamra
not
being
seeing
demonstrative
that this season. You're not seeing her do that? Because it's funny, because like I literally said, I referenced how she loves Tamra, and then I followed up with that's how she loves her kids. Like, I actually do see how she loves Tamra as similar to how she loves her kids. The only thing I'm seeing here is that she kind of scolded her mom in one episode recently when she's like, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. And I was sort of like, why does the mom have to, like, I wouldn't expect that of my mother. I was a little surprised by that. So it's sort of like Heather has this wound of not receiving what she felt she gave and not getting, like, Heather has this wound of feeling like she has to hold everything together. And so if she could meet Tamra where she's at, like you're saying, and soften and act, or just be messy, really. But I feel like a weird thing that I'm feeling like I want to defend Heather in a weird way, but even though I'm acknowledging that, it's like this weird part of me that says, I feel like she's slowly getting there a little bit better. Yeah.
No, totally. And actually, okay, so that's how I see Tamra.
Okay.
what you just said. So, and I want to go back. I'm not to correct you, but like,
I
because
love
you
that.
said something
I love
about
that.
like, you were like, I know you love Tamra. I want to be very clear. I am not looking at Tamra through rose-colored glasses. Like Heather, I see Tamra for
I love
who
Tamra.
she is.
Yeah.
But no, what you just said, that's how I see Tamra. I see Tamra, and I agree with you that Heather, yeah, if we're going to talk about just kind of like current, I mean, again, this feels like such a condescending way to say it, but like emotional intelligence. Yes, Heather is way, 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 way ahead of the game when it comes. Like Heather is way more able to see herself and to see others than Tamra, 100%. But what I see in Tamra though is someone who, yes, historically has had blinders on, has a tunnel vision of how she sees things. When other people bring new information to her, it destabilizes her. It is very hard for her to take it in. I get all that. But what I see in Tamra, and I think this is why I have a soft spot for her, I see someone who's trying. I see someone who's trying, and I see someone who's taking steps. So, I talked about this on Instagram. Her at the end of that party saying out loud, I am going to go process this before she reacted. That is not a small thing. That is therapy in motion. Tamra is not someone who ever said, I am going to go process this. And even just this last episode, like, Tamra was getting tense with Emily, but you kind of saw something happen at the end of the conversation where she was like, you have a really good product. I was like, no,
and the thing with her, I love her because she is a wild card and she can be so much fun in all of the things. But, I always think her biggest, and what I'm seeing here, like, I just think her biggest fear is like, she wants to catch people in the act before she gets hurt. So like, she wants to catch people lying. She wants to catch people. She's very distrusting of everyone, which makes it very hard. And she's also, the victimization thing with her is really difficult for me because she's like, no, I'm hurting the most. No, it's because she is so deeply sensitive that it's hard for her to imagine that anyone else feels as deeply as she does because she feels she's experiencing the worst of it. And I think that sometimes colors some of her thought patterns. But she also has this, I've seen her when the subject's not about her, like when she's on a podcast, she has actually has great perspective and she can see things totally. And it's amazing. But to me, the fear that she has a fear of being made a fool, a fear of being lied to, and a fear of trusting. So those things are what we see a lot of time, being betrayed or that is like, she is a little bit always on guard. I guess that's the infinity energy I'm moving around in now. It's like, she's always on guard with Heather. She's always on guard. And I actually think Heather feels that and feels like Heather is trying to get through, but they don't speak the same language. And that's why I think Heather might actually choose to walk away, emotionally detach soon.
Well, I think also, it's just so interesting because, again, I'm just seeing the mirrors because I think Heather is also really sensitive. And, to our points, Heather is also really on guard. But one thing I just want to circle back around to just to put a button on it because we drifted away from it a little bit. So, yes, I agree with you. Heather, absolutely. And this is what I was saying. It's like she is clearly in a place of introspection and she is making changes. It's just, I do feel like it could be even messier. Like that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a level of mess there. And that, this goes back to like what she potentially likes and admires about Tamra. Oh, there's one other thing I want to say about that too. But it's like the wildness, just giving into the voice that just wants to be like, you fucking hurt me. Don't fucking say that. You know what I mean? It's almost like Heather is someone who I might even encourage to be dysregulated for a little bit of it. Like let the pendulum swing a little too far in the other direction and be a Tamra for a little while and then course correct.
That's literally what the card said when I asked, like, what does Heather get from Tamra? It literally says this creative fire, this creative energy, this like messiness. That's, what I said a lot earlier, and it helps her to grow.
But it's also interesting because you talked about Heather being the CEO who sees everything. And it's interesting because part of what makes, in a way, Tamra untrustworthy to her cast members is the way that she'll often play producer of the show. And I actually heard her say something recently about this season. where she was like, she literally said this in an interview. She's like, I've always got my business mind on. And so there's always part of me that's essentially kind of like watching the way the show is going. And she was like, this season I went in kind of basically silently saying to the cast, like, okay, like if you don't want, like, I'm not doing that this season. And I'm going to just simply be who I actually am. And essentially, I'm not going to worry about the show. And I just think that's interesting, though, because it's almost like, and this is part of why I've always had a soft spot towards Tamra, too, is like, I have always felt the entrepreneur in her. Like that she was a survivor after that marriage with Simon. Like she downsized. She lived in this shitty 2-bedroom apartment. She started Cut Fitness because she wanted a brick and mortar business outside of Housewives. And then she started this really successful CBD line. Like she's actually like, I mean, we know this, but she's powerful. And I almost wonder, like, bringing in the CEO in Tamra, the business mind in Tamra, it's like there's a way that it's almost like, even though she's successful, she almost doesn't wield it directly, like in a really empowered and powerful way of like, no, I'm actually a brilliant business person and I don't have to do this in the shadows and on the sidelines. Like I can wield it directly. And I almost wonder if there's a way like that's part of what Heather mirrors for her, of like the woman who's willing to take the leadership role, dress the part, own the part, whereas Tamara's kind of like, yeah, I'm just a scrappy little whatever, and I do things on the sidelines. It's sort of another kind of mirror of each other.
Love that. I love that. Because yeah, like it is so easy to forget that Tamra is like a very successful, like she's trying to say it with the Emily thing, like you have a following because you're on my network.
Which is
and
true.
I think that's what you're speaking to. Yeah, it's what you're speaking to. It's like, and it's funny, Jeff Lewis keeps telling Tamra, you should play up the fact that you're an entrepreneur. And, he's been telling her that for a while. And I saw it this season where she was talking more about her podcast. I mean, that woman like gets up early and works all day. And we actually don't see that side of her. We see the like emotional party girl or emotionally distraught. Like, and this is like, she probably doesn't even have, and it's also on interviews. She's very emotionally attached to like Eddie. Like she doesn't like it when he leaves. She doesn't know what to do with herself. Like she likes to stay busy and all of these things. So this is a highly capable individual, but she's, I've always thought of her as somebody who's like, even though she's like deeply emotional, her mind doesn't stop. Like her mind is like constant. If she could quiet, it would be great.
It's funny because this is reminding me when Piper and I did an episode about the end of last season, what really came to me, there's always that talk about like how Tamra changed the landscape of Housewives and how that moment way back in season 4 when she said to Gretchen, did you go to Bass Lake? That kind of changed the landscape of Housewives. But what I was feeling when we were discussing that was like, oh, she's like a change maker. Like she's a change maker. And I'm remembering that again because the truth is her podcast is wildly successful. And, just so people understand, it's become like a culture now where every Bravo celebrity has a podcast. This wasn't the case before. Nope. Teddy and Tamra doing that podcast where they were two former housewives talking about housewives, that was new at the time. And it, again, changed the landscape, and it is a huge hit, and it has given birth to other hits. So this is me just kind of confirming what we're both saying, which is there is, even if it's not, it's almost like because she is so wild, and I think this is where her wildness is her strength. It's not even like I get the sense of her as like someone who sits down like an intentional CEO, let's say, and like plots it all out. But there's a live wire energy in her where she follows these creative impulses and shit happens, and she is fucking smart. Like she's smart.
Yeah, it was amazing when their business, the gym business, went under, how scrappy they were to do, because the CBD line does really, really well. Like for them to create that after the gym fell through, it shows a lot. Like not a lot of people can regenerate like that.
And you know what? I'll give it, I mean, this is totally an aside. This is why I also give it up to Gina. It's like, I see her, like she's building a fucking life for herself. She is sitting here saying, I'm not going to just rely on being a real housewife. So I always, for anyone who gets confused why I have a soft spot for Tamra, these are the qualities in her that I just sort of respect and admire. I think just the last thing that I would kind of want to say, just because it was like a dangling thread, because I brought in the question of like, what is the show for Heather, which I'm still so curious about. when you were responding to that, even though you weren't speaking directly to it, I did get this sense of something about like, I really do think Heather's looking for answers. And I really want to go back to what I said about like, I think she's in a season of her life where she's getting older. The acting didn't work out. Housewives kind of came and went and then came back again. And I think, and I believe there's a spiritual capacity in Heather, whether or not she owns that or is in conscious connection with it. I feel it for her. I think she's someone, again, look at what she's manifested for herself, even in her regulation and her compartmentalization and her control. She's hugely successful. I think she's got a deep power to manifestation. And so anyways, I guess like the first hit I got, and then I'm curious to see what the cards are saying. It's like, I think she's looking for answers. And I think sometimes it's really hard for her to still separate like a certain type of material success and fame. And so like the show is like the shiny apple that wants to give her something, but it's almost like part of her knows like, this isn't totally it. So I'm going to try to use it to bring awareness and to set my kids up. But some part of me is still seduced by it. It's like she's not clear yet in herself what her own motives are. And it's like, and I think this is what's hard for someone like her and people in this arena where their spiritual path is tethered to the notion of fame and being in the public spotlight and being of service that way. But it's such a fine line because there's also, it's the forbidden fruit. It's the apple, it's temptation. That wire can be tripped to the ego, to the status, to the illusion of it, rather than what is the illusion inviting people into on a deeper level. So I just think she's looking for answers and she's not quite clear yet. And I see you buzzing.
Oh, it's so crazy. I'm obsessed with what you just said, especially about the fame piece. That is part of, some people have a spiritual path to be famous. That's something I hope everyone has heard. No, as you were saying, I pulled cards before you started speaking because you asked the question and then you started speaking. So you were asking the question, what was the question again? Because you were asking
kind of like, why is she doing the show?
Why is she
like
doing
what?
The show? Yeah. Okay, and then you started speaking and the cards flew out prior. And yes, Ace of Pentacles. This is stability. This is like my identity in the stable material world. This is how I stabilize in the material world. So this is my paycheck. This is very much like my coin. You know, it's the big pentacle. It's coming. She does. And it's the Ace of Pentacles coming from the divine. Like she is aware that this is something she is meant to do and supposed to do. But she's also at a crossroads of, can she allow herself, the Fool card, to fall, be messy? Or is she going to have a reunion with mind, body, soul, and these other relationships? You know, I think she's actually in an illumination period in her life where some clarity has hit her. She's having a creative awakening. That's no doubt about it. Total creative awakening. Her heart space is open and deeper than it ever has before. And with the show, she's aware that it's something that actually, the show has given her nothing but rooted stabilization, which is really cool. But she is definitely at a mental crossroads where what hasn't been illuminated to her is, should she take a risk or should she just stay? I'm seeing 3 birds on a branch here too with the sun, and I'm talking about illumination, the 2 crossroads of the sun. It's almost like, I don't know how the show's going to pan out, but it's almost like she has to choose between people here is what I'm seeing. But there's something about her needing, it's a crossroads in her life where she either wants to start over completely new or she wants to reunite with these relationships. So it doesn't really give us a conclusive answer, but it certainly gives us a lot of intriguing ideas of where she's at.
All right. So it sounds like, in terms of the original question, loves Tamra deeply, scared of Tamra, keeping almost like maybe what I was sensing in terms of what she's circling around in terms of the deeper truth is almost her own deeper, messier emotion. So maybe that is kind of what I was saying, where I was like, technically she's saying all of it, but maybe that's the absence I'm feeling. It's like, you're not owning the true force of love, the true anger, the true grief, the true fear, like the true emotional tempest connected to all of it. And that's possibly what like Tamra is inviting her into. I'm going to say one other thing. This is going to be my concluding note. I just got such a strong hit. Because you know how we're sort of exploring how Tamra's like working on herself, but like, yeah, Tamra can get very myopic and tunnel vision. It's very hard. Like you said, it was hard for her to take Heather in at that lunch all the way. It's almost like I can see the invisible blinders over her eyes. But this is what the hit that I just got. Because people get scared of Tamra, right? So they get scared to push back. I just got this hit, Molly, that if in some hypothetical scenario, Heather did just let her own wild emotions flow back in response, it would be like, boom, the thing that would snap Tamra out of her hypnosis of like,
wow.
Like that would have the power to shake something out of Tamra.
Okay, so you're reading this card the way it was supposed to be read. This was the first card that came out when you asked me what is Heather's purpose on the show. And it's actually what you just said. That this is just the Ace of Swords, but I'm giving you the visual. It's a sword of truth with lightning bolts behind it from universal law, and then we see the infinity sign again. But it's literally what you just said. It's literally what you just said.
Well, can you explain? Yeah.
Well, the lightning bolt is universal law, right? So it's like, it would be where she can no longer project or put on a mask, where it's the sword of truth, where you would just literally like reveal yourself completely. You see like she would, and this is what I was trying to say earlier, is that there's a rod within Heather that is powerful and creative and sees things as they are and like knows what's true. And she's got all the aces here. We have Ace of Cups, Ace of Fire, this is somebody who is, and then we have the Ace of Pentacles. Like, I'm telling you, this person is ready to pop. That's why I'm saying she's at a crossroads in her life, because and yes, the invitation. And that's why when I said, what does she receive from Tamra? It's an initiation. It's initiation to break free, like you're saying. And if she could take the initiation from Tamra, that is such a cool idea that it would actually snap Tamra out of the spell. And yeah, like if Heather was like, all right, fuck it. Yes, I was talking shit because you do this and it breaks my heart and da-da-da-da-da. And she's like almost there. She's like so close. But you're right. It would just be one more sort of like one more reveal, or one more like burn it down. Let it go, Heather. Let it go. See what happens. And it would be, then you got the Kundalini snake again. So there you go.
Yeah, I love that. So it's sort of like the invitation and the soul work for Heather in a way. It's like she's meant, part of her precision and her sword of truth is she's meant to wield these fiery emotions when they arise, especially because I'm hearing she would be unlike maybe a Tamra who kind of just is like a wild fire hose. I feel like Heather would actually wield it very responsibly and intentionally, but it would have the power to shake someone out of to break the spell. But but Heather, and this is the work I do with clients actually in terms of what's the soul strategy. It's like she learned me being out of control is unsafe in some way. So I've got to like stay controlled. And then, if my intuitive theories are correct, that's what kept her fully from the acting career. That's what keeps her, fully, so her soul task in this lifetime is like, she's developed certain aspects of the sort of truth so well. The CEO, the one who's got it all together, the articulate woman who's in control. Her soul work is to go back and reclaim the wildness that Tamra, so that she can master who she is meant to be as the fully complete and integrated sword of truth.
I am so excited because actually the only time we've really seen Heather start to do this has been in scenes with Tamra. So what a beautiful thing that we're like seeing here. There's two women activating each other to actually be more self-realized.
Well, and that's the thing. That's the like possible higher self or inversion of the infinity loop. It's like right now the infinity loop is they're bumping up against each other's fear, which makes them more afraid. But if Heather were willing, let's say, to emote, and snap Tamra, like, so then she emotes and Tamra potentially snaps out of her spell. And then who knows where that takes Tamra, and then that helps Heather like that. So it does sound like they're in some sort of sacred,
so cool
contract.
I think that would give the grounding that Tamra needs in those moments. That is so cool. I'm excited for them. This is like really beautiful, to be honest.
I know, I love it. I feel like they just got like a whole reading.
They totally did.
All right. Well, I'm so glad we did this. I thought this was really fun.
I'm surprised by it, actually, because I've never done a reading, out in the world online about, I've never done something like this, and I wasn't sure if it was going to translate, but it feels really ethical and beautiful.
No, I've actually had this vision with you for a while, so I'm glad we did it. All right. Well, on that note, Molly, tell people where to find you because you give readings.
Yeah, I do. I give soul readings. via the tarot. And you can find me on Instagram at Molly Durand, MOLLYDURAND. I mostly primarily teach singers. I'm a musician and I read the tarot. It's my favorite thing to do in the whole world. So yeah.
And I've heard from people who got readings from you after you were last on here and they were raving about it. And what I love about, I always love this, a few of my former clients who got them, they all were like, oh yeah. And she totally like said like so many of the same things that you were always telling me. So I love when there's that overlap.
It's been really cool to work with your clients in particular because it's almost like you're setting them up to be able to hear what the cards have to tell them. And it's also after they've done all this incredible creative work. So it's nice to work with your people because, man, are they open channels. It's pretty astounding.
Well, yes. So I want to support anyone listening to this. If you're looking for a powerful reading, go run to Molly and check her out. And then as always, follow me on Instagram, Jamie Stein, JAMIESTEIN. Go to my website if you're curious about my work. And maybe I'll just throw this out there. In the spirit of honoring an impulse that I did today with this reading, I have also long had an impulse of some sort of, I know that a lot of people will get a lot out of these episodes and they have revelations for themselves. And then oftentimes they have questions about the themes and the topics. And I've long had a vision of creating some sort of community or ecosystem where people are able to deepen their experience of the episodes and not necessarily be alone in them, whatever that looks like, whatever that is. I don't know what it is yet. And on that note, maybe my request, my informal request that I'm putting out there right now is if you're listening to this and if that lands with you and if you are someone who would be excited about something like that, let me know your preferred forum. Like I've been hearing Discord, I've been hearing School, I've been hearing Substack. I really feel drawn to Substack in a lot of ways. But yeah, and maybe what I'll do just to make this really easy is I'll put a link to my contact page in the show notes for this episode. So if you are listening, guys, I never ask for ratings. I never ask for reviews. I never ask to hit the subscribe button. This is my ask. If you're listening to this and this lands with you, go to the show notes, click the link that brings you to my contact page and let me know where you might want to see some sort of ecosystem or community. That's it.
So exciting.
All right, you guys, that's it for now. Really fun. And yeah, we should do more of these. All right, See you on the flip side. Bye.